You see people who just live like these crazy different lives. That's what I want to do. Like, I want my life and how I live it to be a reflection of my brain, or soul if you want to go there.
This is Intentionally Ever After. Join intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek for a series of personal conversations and coaching sessions with various people about how living with intention shows up for them.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Intentionally Ever After. Today, I am very happy to chat with my relative, Mr. Jefferson Dutton. Jeff, welcome.
Hello. Hello, everyone listening, and hello, Joe. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, thanks for joining me. Will you kindly introduce yourself to folks, please?
Yes. You can call me Jeff, by the way.
I shall.
I am a wearer of many hats. I'm a writer and director and editor living in LA. I've done a lot of work in the comedy space, and I'm a member of the sketch comedy group The Birthday Boys, and the band The Sloppy Boys, and the podcast The Sloppy Boys, which is about cocktails. That's the long and short of it. That's what I've got going on.
Yeah. So if someone Googles The Sloppy Boys, do you guys come up, or is it something different entirely?
Oh, hell yeah. We used to be the second match. Now we are the top dog.
Nice.
There's like an actor. I think his name is Noah Taylor. He's an actor. He's like a TV guy. And he used to be in a band called Noah Taylor and the Sloppy Boys, I want to say. And so we were always like second fiddle. And then in the last couple of years, we've taken the top spot.
Nice. That's awesome. Hey, Jeff, What does it mean to you to live intentionally?
Well, shouldn't you be telling me? I mean,
yeah.
Here's
surprise.
Here's my my reaction to that. To live intentionally means to not live according to your basic instincts and desires, and to sort of take a more introspective approach on like, what is it that I want out of life? How do I make my life reflect my feelings and my soul? Versus, just chasing, I need to eat, I need to live, I need to fuck, I need to whatever, and essentially not being happy or fulfilled.
Ooh, I like that. Happiness and fulfillment, that comes along with an intentional life?
I think so.
Okay. How do you focus on that, or when do you think about that?
Well, when do I think about it personally?
Yeah, you specifically. Let's get that.
I'm I'm a big shower thinker. I think a lot of people think about it all the time. Like, it's constant for me. We just had a nice little catch up before we pressed record, but
yeah,
I've had a lot of instability in life. I think I've chosen a life that has afforded me a lot of freedom, and that's really good, but not a lot of stability and security. And it's just sort of like how it is for a lot of people out here chasing the arts and living in the big city. But you really start to notice when you hit 30 or later, and you can no longer look to your parents to being like the metric for like, where am I at in my life? This is how I went to high school. They went to high school. This is where I went to college, and you sort of have a map that your parents give you or you get from society. And then when you start running out of map is when you're like, oh boy, now I need to start I need to start asking myself what it is that I want, and not just what does one do at this stage in an American's life.
Right. So being where you are geographically, do you pick up a map from someone locally and continue there, or are you on your own?
Truly, when I got into Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in LA with my comedy boys, the Birthday Boys, that was the first time that we started to see how people got to television or whatever, movies, or that's how we saw how it worked in comedy. Until then, it was very mysterious. Like, how do people get cast on SNL? And, you start to pick up little things like, oh, there's this place, Second City, where a lot of comedy writers and actors come from. But it always felt so distant to me, especially coming up in New Hampshire. And it always felt so theatrical, like, like musical theater, like stagey theater. And that never really was my thing. And so going to UCB, we would come up, you'd see people who would be really funny improvisers. And then we'd be like, oh, that's Nick Kroll. He just got those Geico caveman commercials, because that's what was going on back in 2006 or whatever. And then now we all know who Nick Kroll is. But you started to see like the little constellation points would be like, oh, he got this and then he got this. And you start to see
the trajectory. Yeah.
It offers a little bit of a map, the trajectory of how to get from point A to B, because it's very mysterious. It's still mysterious. And it's more mysterious now that UCB is like defunct due to COVID and its other sort of like growing pains. And, I'm back to not having quite as clear a map as I used to have.
So when you're in chaos, you didn't say that, but let's say chaos adjacent.
Mm-hmm. The game has sort of been like getting comfortable with living with a certain large degree of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. But because it's relative uncertainty, right? You've lived enough life to know certain things that you need and that light you up and that you're no longer willing to do or no longer willing to have, and what matters to you maybe a little bit more. Is that fair to say?
Yes, totally. I mean, that's the one thing I think, everybody gets with age is like, well, I know what I like and I don't like. And I've always been a pretty opinionated guy anyway. So, as a director, you got to direct, you got to have opinions. You got to have quick opinions sometimes. And they got to be right. So
yeah,
you just sort of don't look back and you shoot from the hip sometimes. But yeah, you got to rely on your own sort of consistent sense of like, hey, I know what I like and I don't like, and what works for me and what doesn't. And you're less blowing in the wind that way. But it takes some people a while to arrive at that.
Yeah. Do you have kind of a core message you tell yourself or you recalibrate back to maybe when you've gotten knocked off course?
Yeah, I think it's that when things aren't going your way, or like, where am I where I'm supposed to be and all that stuff, I feel like I should be doing greater work or being paid more, or like, why aren't I living this life that, we all got romanced by, like, the Hollywood myth. And now, it just looks a little different now with like the internet taking a giant bite out of television and movies, and the Hollywood that we all fell in love with doesn't really exist anymore, or it's changing. And the thing I ask myself is like, well, is there anything else you want to do? And I always kind of come back to like, no, this is what I want to be trying to do. If I can't be doing it, it's that 50 Cent get rich or die trying. It's like, I don't have a plan B, so I'm gonna just keep on doing this. And I'd rather die trying to do this than become a dentist or something.
Yeah, dentists. That's for the birds.
Mm-hmm.
What is one change in habit that has had an exponential payoff?
This is a good question. I like the idea of habits, and habits are powerful things.
All right, you sold me.
Doing something regularly.
Mm-hmm.
With creative work, oftentimes there's like, oh, I wish I wrote this weekend, or I wrote this weekend, or whatever, and having to make the time to do the difficult thing that is not required of you, but you want to do it. After you do the day job, making the time to write or paint or whatever it is. It's really tough to do when you only feel like you can do it when the stars align. You make a special plan in order to do something. Where it becomes really powerful is when you do it regularly and it becomes sea level for you. That's like the power of habit. Oh man, I'm spiraling or stammering a lot. You can edit this.
No, I'll tell you what. No. You look cool already. Although we're not using the video for it.
I gave somebody some advice a bit ago, and they were talking about like getting up in comedy or doing more, like what should they be doing. And my habit that I've done that has paid off exponentially has been starting my podcast because of the regularity of it. Literally the habitualness of it has been what's been really effective about it. Rather than say, oh, I'm going to work on my masterpiece, and when it's all done, you'll all see. I'm going to build this big, beautiful house of a piece of work. Instead, we focus on making a brick every week. Mm-hmm. Those bricks add up to the house, but not being so precious about like, the stars will align and I'll work on the great American novel or whatever. I talk shit with my friends and we try and be entertaining, And it's a little work. Like I do some editing and, there's some Photoshop. There's a little sweat equity involved, but not overthinking each brick and just making each brick and making that a sustainable model, like a habit that we can do this Monday nights from now on until there's some like emergency or whatever. This is something that myself and Mike and Tim can do. And getting into the habit of doing that has birthed this thing that has been, the podcast has been more effective and more powerful and meaningful for people than like the band version of the same three guys, and maybe even the TV show that we had, which was I'm immensely proud of, but was not like well rated. So anyway, start a podcast, everyone. That's my advice.
Yeah. How does the idea, because you're not doing a solo podcast, right? You got the accountability.
Yeah.
Somewhat. How does that factor into the success of this habit?
Yeah, it's really tough when it's just you to be like, to believe in something that just exists in your head, and to have other people that you're sort of holding on to, like, okay, we agree this is real, right? Like you kind of can like verify each other, give each other the confidence of this. I know I was telling you before we recorded, when we first started doing comedy, we were all inexperienced. And so you needed the seven of us or the group of us to give each other the confidence to go out on stage like we know what we're doing. It's nice to have positive reinforcement of others. And I think it's really helpful to find like a good team or like a good partnership. You can still do it on your own. It's hard. I'm working on stuff that's just me, and it's taking forever. And there's a lot of second guessing. Even in the stuff that I'm working on for my own stuff, I bounce it off those same guys or other people that I trust their opinions, and I care about their taste, their lens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think other people, I'm much more of a collaborator than I am like a solo dude.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's working for you. You're not just picking anybody to collaborate with. You're not just picking anybody to serve as your accountability or your partners, right? You're doing so very intentionally, that sounds like.
Yeah, so you can't take any dude off the street. If you can have a bad collaborator, that's worse. It's better to have no collaborators than to have like somebody who's like sowing, you need somebody who's going to like gas you up, give you criticism that is good, first of all, and then is delivered in a way that doesn't like crush you.
Right.
So I think my guys have been very supportive. For as critical as we all are, I think we're very caring about how we give notes and like super honest too. Like, hey, don't do that. That's like whack or whatever.
What's an example of something recently that was whack that either you mentioned?
Okay.
Yeah.
I was working on a song and I used the word literally in the chorus. And it was like, this is like getting super, the normal person isn't going to give a fuck about this. So I used the word literally in the chorus of a song, and one of the guys sort of like poo-pooed it as like, that's kind of like basic. Lonely Island on SNL already did literally. And then what's his name? Rob Lowe from Parks and Recreation.
Right.
His whole thing is like,
it's played. Yeah.
And Perkins, you're literally radiant. Like it's kind of used. Yeah. It's kind of played. And, I think I ultimately might use
But you were open to the feedback. It didn't crush you. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And he had pitches for like, instead you could say this or whatever. And so I did take the note, but then it's just so effective for what I wanted in that chorus. I think I might use literally. But anyway, policing stuff like something just being kind of played, or these are very critical guys. We don't go, I'm trying not to shit talk shows that I have like friends that work on, but like, we don't go for the good place. Like if you love NBC's The Good Place, you might not be as into comedy as you think you are.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Anyway, we're haters. We're all kind of haters of culture in general.
Well, this is your lifestyle that you're talking about. It's not just kind of, jokes are, that is oversimplifying it, right?
Yeah.
But this is meaningful to you.
If you loved food, you don't love all food. Mm-hmm. If food is your thing, you're actually very discerning about food. You don't love Burger King necessarily. And so I get a lot of, family members being like, oh, you like comedy? You should check out this. And I'm like, that's the worst thing in the fucking world. But I have to be like, never seen it. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Oh,
Like
thank you.
So much of my life is that.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah. So you don't want
It's
a
like,
recommendation from me on what you should listen to?
no. I mean, I'm not trying to be like, I think you and I probably have more in common than a lot of the people
that you're referring
sort
to.
of referring to. But you got a family member and it's just like, oh yeah, Chris loves food. You should talk to him about like the KFC like chicken Whopper or whatever. It's like he doesn't give a shit about that. He's a food guy.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
He's an elitist prick about food.
Yeah, but food means something differently to him, right? It's
Yes.
not just like food as we all need to consume it, right?
Mhm.
That he might have a lifestyle in food, right? Or work in the food industry. I think
Right.
that's
And also there are people who love Burger King that are like fine dining chefs.
Yeah.
Anyway, no
Yeah.
shade to Burger King.
No, I was going to say they'll be just fine even if you throw shade. Right?
Yeah.
They're doing just fine even with the
They're fine.
criticism. Yeah.
They could take a little criticism.
Yeah. All right. So, what have you said no to that has made a significant impact in your life?
I say yes a lot. Too much, probably. This is like, okay, here's like a little tiny version. I used to be the go-to guy for a lot of my collaborators' little projects. Like, Hanford, my buddy Mike. Like I would always like kind of like shoot and edit videos with him. And I was always handy. And so he'd be like, hey, can you tweak this video or like make this song for me? I have an idea for a song. And I was sort of a go-to guy for techie stuff, for the creation of like the nuts and bolts of the thing. And I was less the guy who had the initial idea. So I would be more of the executor. And I've been really busy with work and the podcast and the band and other music stuff that I want to do. And Mike moved to New York. And I told him at one point, I was like, I think it's time that you learn Adobe Premiere and you edit this stuff. Like I can't be.
Yeah.
It was one thing when like you were in the room with me or whatever, but if you're I think it's time for you to learn how to edit, my man. And he's been really good at it.
How much did it take you to muster up that? Was it an easy conversation for you to have, or was it a buildup?
Oh, I mean, there were maybe like 3 videos where I would agree to it, and then like, it wasn't like begrudging or anything. I was just like, I could just feel that like, oh, this just feels a little less organic than it used to, and it's just like it feels like there's like a change that's gonna happen, and like luckily he's taken to it like a fish to water, and he's made really funny stuff, and like I'll still give him notes on stuff. I still would like to collaborate with him, but learning to sort of protect my time has been tough. So saying no to like favors for friends as far as techie, creative, nuts and boltsy stuff.
Yeah.
That's been a new thing for me lately, is sort of saying no to that.
Yeah.
We're being more discerning. It's not always a no.
Yep. I think that's a good point. It's the discernment, right? It's about a qualified no, or not at a certain point, or not past a certain point, perhaps.
And like, even if you technically do have a Sunday free, it's like, well, I'm ensuring that I don't work on the other stuff that I work on if I say yes to helping this person with this PDF or this video or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you sort of kind of got to get ahead of protecting your time.
Yeah.
Even if you technically can do it,
What about the kind of maybe obvious high level no that you've said? You've said no to the traditional trajectory of a job after college. How about that? Obviously, maybe it's obvious, but what's your kind of take on that?
That's a big one. I think that I want to be more flexible and free than just like my time. Nobody likes being in an office, but I really don't like being in an office. Like I think I think I particularly am not cut out for corporate life or the sort of structured way that a lot of people have gone through.
Right.
This is when you're supposed to get married. This is when you're supposed to have kids or whatever. I always felt like there was a little bit of a loss of self in that. Like I need to be able to be spontaneous. And I've sacrificed a little bit of stability for that. And sometimes I second guess it, and I wonder if I should. I wonder if I've maybe gone a little too far. But that's the big no, I guess, is that I've eschewed the normal trajectory of American life or American corporate life, work life.
Do you think it's never to return or never to appear? Like that is a final decision, or
well, I do
how
think
do you view that?
I think if I get some stuff out of my system, I might settle down into something that fits, that feels like it fits. I don't know if I'm quite there yet, though. It does feel a little bit like settling. I don't know. There's so many factors. Like I'm not in a relationship that makes me really feel rooted or happy or something. And maybe if I had that, I would be like, okay, well, this really is spiritually satisfying to me. And maybe I can stomach not loving my job so that I can like live with this person and like where we live and that sort of stuff. There's a lot in flux right now for me as far as where I'm living, who I'm with, what I'm doing. Sure. So I don't really have, you caught me in a very transitional time. I don't have a lot of solid answers for you in a lot of those departments.
I didn't do that intentionally.
Hey,
however, I think your responses are very helpful for a lot of people who are also in a transitionary period. Maybe it's not even that you would have to end up settling for this other type of lifestyle. Maybe it's just certain components that you would like to have that a traditional lifestyle has.
I like I like living in a nice apartment or eating good food and all the things that come with like basically having money and like security, stability, and having a sense that like I'm not 2 medical emergencies away from like being bankrupt for the rest of my life. Like that would be a nice feeling. But also like fear of missing out on I know like FOMO is like a trendy idea, but just regretting not trying to do the creative thing. I always am afraid of looking back, like I never tried to do the thing or whatever. And I'm very happy that like, hey, I look back and like I did have a TV show. I was in a band and I have a podcast. Those are like cool, weird things that not everybody has. And I'm very proud of that stuff. Very like, that's like put it on my gravestone type shit for me.
Totally. And it's stuff, that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You didn't just stumble into that. You pursued it. You are working hard at it and you're doing it.
Have you ever heard of The Artist's Way?
Yes.
It's a book. Mm-hmm. It's a book for creative recuperation or something. That's not the word, but it's for the artistically injured. And it's back when I was like, the show was canceled and I was like, what am I about? What am I doing? And it makes you do morning pages and do some introspection. But a lot of the book was about, it's written for people who never tried the thing. People who like went down a corporate path because it was stable and their parents told them to. And they're like, I always wanted to paint and I've never allowed myself to try. Mm-hmm. And that always just bummed me out. Like I was like glad I'm not one of those people. And hey, if you are one of those people, try the thing. Just do it. Try the thing. You're never too old. Do it. Try the thing.
Yes. I love that advice, obviously. I think the fear, right? That fear of financial uncertainty or instability, right? I would suggest, though, that going the safe route isn't a cure. You can't prevent the uncertainty.
Right.
I mean, you might have a greater likelihood of attending to those. But there's always going to be challenges. Life is always going to be hard.
Yep.
It's just what type of hard, right?
Yep. That's very true. Pick your hard.
Yeah. Pick your hard. There you go. We'll take that and run with it. What area in your life, now that we're talking about all this uncertainty, what area in your life feels just about perfect?
Joe, this is a tough one. I saw this one on, I got to say right now, not a lot. I've got things where I'm like, hey, this is starting to like get better and I'm starting to have a little more agency in this department of my life, but close to perfect. That's nothing right now. I'll say I'm thankful that I'm healthy. I've got a solid relationship with my family and that I am relatively untraumatized. Like, I don't have any sort of like major issues that I'm avoiding or stuffing. Like, I feel like a pretty clean sieve.
Yeah.
I got some bad habits and vices and stuff like that, but I don't feel like I'm avoiding any sort of, I don't think I have any real skeletons in the closet. So I'm thankful for that. And I feel like, hey, that's maybe an aspect of my life that I would call perfect-ish.
Yeah.
I got a nice little foundation and, I'm healthy.
It sounds like a pretty good place to be starting from.
Yeah. I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have it. Like the more you get out there in the world, you're like, hey, yeesh. You think everybody's the same when you're a kid. And then you learn that, some people's parents really don't like that they moved to LA.
Mm-hmm.
They bring it up every time they talk on the phone. And like, my parents want to see me, but they've always been very supportive of me chasing what I want to chase.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not nothing, right?
Mm-mm.
Who is someone that you admire, and what do you admire about them?
This is a tricky one. This got me thinking about why I admire the people I admire. And a lot of it would always come down to like the work that they would do. For me, like growing up, it was always just like, Steven Spielberg. Like I want to be Spielberg. And then, people who make media that really resonates with me. It's like, I want to be like Kanye West. Not lately, but like the Kanye of 5-10 years ago. Yeah, baby. Yeah. That's like, these people who are in creative control of their lives. That's the theme is people who are in creative control of their work and in creative control of their lives. Jack White from the White Stripes is another dude who's just like, man, when you see him and how he lives his life and like his record company, Third Man Records, like they have a building in, I don't know, Nashville or something. You see like, here is a guy who has designed his life. It looks like an album or something. It looks like an album cover. Like you see people who just live like these crazy different lives. That's what I want to do. Like I want my life and how I live it to be a reflection of my brain. Or soul, if you want to go there.
That's a recordable nugget right there. I appreciate that. I'm gonna totally splice that out later.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Can I swear on this?
No.
Oh, shit.
So go back and just say differently everything that you've already said so far. No, I love an appropriately placed swear word. There's no replacement for it.
Yeah.
Like yeah. So
back in the PG-13 days where you'd get one F.
Oh, yeah.
That would be such a powerful one. You'd be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because, it dulls the senses.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just, you're swearing all the time, which can be funny too. But,
sure.
When it's like a surgical bomb,
mm-hmm.
when it's like a nice little, that's the best.
Yeah.
You used to be able to get one F in a PG movie. Like there are PG movies where like you'll hear like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, for example.
Yeah.
There's one.
I have to play that back. Don't tell me when it is. Don't tell anyone. We have to make us all watch it again.
I don't love that movie, but it's people's favorite like Thanksgiving movie.
It is a good one to have on in the background. There's definitely an extended family member in the room when you're watching that. What do you imagine some people admire about you?
Oh, just sort of my charm and charisma. No, I don't know. I think people. This is just me saying what I like about myself, right?
That's a good start.
But I hope that people like me for my take, my point of view, and my like dedication and work ethic, and like how I pursue the thing that I my take and my point of view. I don't know. This is all very like work focused, creative work. So it's not as like, I think we're all sort of starting to examine worth beyond the work that we do. Especially in the wake of COVID and seeing that like, capitalism doesn't really take care of you the way that like we maybe should, or it's maybe not as perfect a system as we thought it was. But I think there's something special about creative work because you don't do it for payment. So that's kind of like how I'm approaching the answers to these questions. I think it's more important than just being like, here's what I produce and that's what makes me valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like what you admire about some people is what you imagine some people might admire about you, the creative
That's
control
what I'm about.
of your own life.
That's
Yeah. Keeps it simple.
yeah, yeah. I think so.
Yeah. Hey, we've been talking for quite some time. Unfortunately, not the majority of it has not been recorded, but I have really enjoyed
Really?
getting to chat with you. Yeah.
Wait.
No, I mean, this is currently being
Oh,
recorded,
okay.
but I'm referring to the fact that you and I got to chat at length before I hit the record button.
Yeah, it was great.
What I'm wondering now is if you have any thoughts in the name of intentionality that, something maybe you want to bestow upon the anonymous listeners.
Like advice. Or what do you mean? Hold on.
Yeah, it could be advice. I
In
think
the
you're
name-
primed to give some
The
advice.
name of intentionality.
Yeah, I shared with you what the point of this podcast is.
Yeah.
We had a pretty intentional conversation before we started hitting record.
Well, I think, you have to be honest about what it is that you want. And if you got some blocks or you think that you are not allowed to want what you want, you're only going to make things harder for yourself. Now, if you want to murder people, that's different. So there's levels to it. But I know that we touched on some of it in our pre-conversation, but if something is not societally acceptable or does not jive with how you were brought up, but you feel happy that way, you got to do it, or you will be your specific kind of miserable, a misery that is made only for you.
I love that. I'm going to end it right there because that's a thinker.
Yeah.
I
So
really
do it out of
appreciate
fear
it.
of being miserable. That's
Yes.
why you should chase your dreams, is out of fear of being miserable otherwise.
Right. But your specific kind of misery. I like that idea a lot. Jeff, thank you for your time and your careful consideration of these questions.
Joe, it's been a blast. It's been great catching up with you. I didn't know what I was walking into.
Yeah.
I feel good about everything we've said.
Good.
Great.
I also do.
This has been Intentionally Ever After, hosted by intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek. If you would like to have your own intentional conversation with Joe on or off the air, visit intentionallyeverafter.com. Thanks for listening.